Welcome to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray, founder of Rooted Wealth Advisors. Zach and the team help families here in Illinois plan successfully for retirement. They strive to understand all of your financial needs to help guide you on the path to your ideal retirement. This is Rooted in Retirement.
Welcome, I'm Amy Sharp. Joining me, Zach Gray, founder of Rooted Wealth Advisors. Think you can handle the truth when it comes to your retirement? There are 4 financial realities you just can't ignore. And Zach says the sooner you prepare for them, the better your retirement can be. We'll tell you what those 4 realities are. And later, what's the one big thing many people overlook when it comes to retirement planning? We'll tell you what it is to help you avoid making a retirement mistake. Plus, in our retirement game plan, Zach explains what you can learn about retirement from building a house. And I look forward to that segment. As always, good to be back with you, Zach.
Yeah, good to be here with you, Amy.
I know you know this movie, A Few Good Men.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the famous line that I'm thinking of?
I think I'm thinking of "You can't handle the truth."
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So we're going to talk about this truths today when it comes to retirement planning, the 4 financial truths or realities. And give us the first one.
Well, as far as those big 4, you're right. There's a lot of different thoughts that come to mind, but the first one for me is longevity. We are living longer, and many times we'll sit down with folks and we'll say, what does longevity look like, Amy, in your bloodlines? What's the history look like? And we do know that we're probably pushing that number much into our later years now, though, right? So that might not be a good gauge. And then the question is, well, how long are we going to live? And do we have enough money? That's really the number one question that we get from time to time is, am I going to be okay? Do I have enough money? Because we are living longer. And if we are living longer, guess what? That accentuates a lot of the other truths or concerns that we have when it comes to retirement.
Yeah, it's a good news, bad news thing. We want to live longer, but we got to be prepared for it. Okay, give us the second financial reality or truth.
Well, the second one really goes hand in hand with that, and I think it's inflation, because that's kind of the silent assassin when it comes to use of our money. What does $1 today look like 20 years from now? And inflation is no doubt going to be there. If we track that back over the last several decades, it's easy to tell that, it's going to take more money in the future than what it does today. That's not brand new, fresh off the press for anyone, but are we planning for that? Many times we'll see a couple Excel spreadsheets come into the office when we say, bring in your income plan. And Amy, most of the time they say, I've got this pension, I've got this Social Security, maybe I'll use a little bit of my savings and I'm good. And they never change that number. They say, we need $4,000 or $5,000 a month. Well, what's that look like 10, 20, 30 years from now?
Yeah, and sometimes we don't think about it till we head to the grocery store maybe. It comes out in small little increments, but adds up in a big way. The third financial reality, what is it?
Healthcare costs are going to be expensive. That is the reality. We don't want to think about that, and we've shared in past shows about my grandfather's background and long-term care and how that was a huge cost for my grandma Marilyn. You know what? It's not something that we love to think about, at least I don't anyway, but it is something we need to start to plan for. Healthcare costs are going to be really our number one cost in retirement. And you know what? If there's a 65-year-old couple out there watching us today, guess what? There's a 70% chance, or just over, that they're going to need some sort of skilled care or long-term care. So we have to be thinking about the fact that healthcare expenses keep going up and up and up. And secondarily, what about skilled nursing home care? That could be a really big cost that's waiting for us in our later years.
Okay, we've reached the 4th financial reality, truth, when it comes to retirement planning, what we need to keep in mind. What is it?
The 4th one for me is how much money do you actually get to keep? I know that might sound a little funny, but as we start to think about taxes, that's really important. What is the tax concern for us using some of the money that we put away? I'd venture for a lot of folks out there watching that tax deferred money that we talk about from time to time, where we're waiting to pull that money out and then pay taxes, that's probably the biggest savings that they have. Maybe it's a traditional 401k or traditional IRA. Well, guess what? If taxes go up in the future, well, guess what? When we pull that money out, that's less in your purse or my wallet to go spend. And also this really myth of we're going to spend a lot less in retirement. I just don't think that that's the case for most people. And I say that because if we're earning at a high level, are we really going to be able to drop down several tax brackets? My opinion, after seeing this for several decades in the business, is no. We become very accustomed to a lifestyle. We want to maybe help our kids or grandkids. And I think that's phenomenal. But we have to be honest with ourselves. If we think about spending less in retirement, will it really happen? And I think sometimes that's a myth.
So much to think about, so much to process. I'm glad that you put it down into 4 financial realities for us. And I'm glad that you're on our side, because that's really what helps, is to have someone there to help you through it.
Yeah, you definitely need someone helping guide in the path when it starts to think about all of these different thoughts and income, investments, taxes. There's a lot to digest there, and that's what I think we can really help with.
Yeah, the rooted retirement process, that's what you focus in on.
Exactly. We look at that income, we make sure that those investments are built to give that income that we need. Taxes is a huge part of that conversation. We even think about longevity risk in terms of legacy and how to plan for skilled nursing care there too.
Thanks so much, Zach. 4 financial realities, great advice. Up next, what's the one thing many people get wrong when it comes to retirement planning? The answer is straight ahead. And later in this week's retirement game plan, Zach talks about building your financial house. But first, here's how you can contact Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors. Stay tuned.
You know you want to retire. You might even know when you want to retire. What you don't know is what the world will look like. A short market drop, a crash, a recession. What if I told you these words don't have to change your retirement dreams? World events can impact your retirement, but thankfully, they don't have to. Can your retirement survive the unexpected? Visit the link to find your risk score to help you prepare for retirement when you're ready. It's time for you, not outside forces, to be in control of your retirement. Find your risk score so you can be ready no matter what comes next.
Hi, it's Zach Gray from Rooted Wealth Advisors. If you're like many people, you might be wondering if you're ready for retirement. Have you saved enough? How much income will you need? When can you retire? Planning for retirement can feel overwhelming. That's why we created our Retirement Roadmap Toolkit. It's designed to give you the resources to gain confidence as you start your journey to and through retirement. Visit the link today to get your free toolkit. At Rooted Wealth Advisors, we believe you deserve to have a great retirement. Visit the link to receive your free kit today.
Welcome back to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray of Rooted Wealth Advisors.
Thanks for tuning in today, and back with Zach. And now we're going to talk about the one big mistake that people make when it comes to retirement planning. I find it hard to believe, once again, that there's just one. I like how you work, though. You just kind of focus in on one and give it to us. Give it to us straight. So what is that big mistake that we make?
Well, I think the big one that most people make is, what is that budget in retirement? And are we going to spend that amount of money? Because for most people, it's that we're going to spend less money in retirement. Is that always the case? Not always. And frankly, I don't think it's even the majority of the time. So if we think that we're going to spend less in retirement and we don't, that's a huge issue, right? Because it allows us to spend through our money much faster. And frankly, Amy, it can be very disappointing in retirement.
And why is that people have that mindset of, I'm going to spend less? I would think it would actually be just the opposite, because you have more time to spend the money.
Yeah, exactly. In retirement, every day's Saturday,
Yeah,
and you can
lots of them.
Yeah, you do as you want, right? And so whether that's maybe want to go golfing throughout the week, or go shopping with some girlfriends, or spoil the grandkids a little bit, many times that takes even more money. So for years we've had this idea that maybe this 80% rule, we're going to be spending 80% of the money that we earn. So if we earned at a higher level, we can be happier on less. I challenge that, at least for a little window of time, while we're healthy, while we're young. There's a good chance we could spend even more in retirement.
So how do we know how much income we need? What is the first step in that? And it's maybe building a different type of budget when it comes to our retirement.
I think we have to look at what are our essential expenses and what is non-essential. Golf, it might be a non-essential expense.
Depends who you talk to.
Yeah,
right?
very true, very true. I'm not a golfer, so it's not essential for myself. But nonetheless, we have to think about, what taxes are going to be there every single year on our real estate, or how about those utility bills, and the insurance, and keeping the car up to date, and those sorts of things are never going to stop. So I believe that if you can build an income plan that definitely takes care of that, that is very wise to do. Let's go ahead and get some guaranteed income to take care of those essential expenses, and then we can worry about the what ifs later.
And you think about a budget that you had throughout your working years. It changed from time to time. The kids came along, they went off to college, whatever it may be. In retirement, maybe your needs and your wants and your travel thoughts change too. So how often do I need to sit down with my advisor to kind of tweak that budget?
I definitely think it's worth looking at from time to time quarterly, if we can make that happen. A couple times a year is what we definitely like to sit down with our clients for. Usually it's a summer review and a year-end review, and there's other pieces of the puzzle that would really say why we do it at those times, and we can go into that later. But I would say is looking at that, and if you can even do it month to month, it's a great idea to make sure that you're staying on budget, that you're staying on course. You don't want to drift way off in your spending because once again, in retirement, we don't want any do-overs. We don't want to have to recreate that income later on. We want to make sure that we can stay retired very happily.
I always think about what it must be like when a couple comes into your office, Zach, and two different ideas going on. How does that work? Do you put on your counselor hat at that point? What direction do you take at that point?
Well, I'm no Dr. Phil, but I will say this. It is very important to look at all sides of the equation, and many times we'll even joke around, Amy, how much money are we going to spend in retirement? And sometimes we'll start here, right, at a high number. Zach, we need to have $100,000 a year, and either she will look at him or he, her, and it'll be okay, maybe $75,000. And then before you know it, we're down to $50,000. In the matter of 5 minutes, we cut our budget in half. And that is why I tell folks that that's a key question. We can look at all the X's and O's and all the investments, and we can talk in detail about taxes, etc. But if we don't know how much money we're going to spend in retirement, that's a little bit like not knowing what target to shoot at. You can't be blindfolded as you want to kind of pull the arrow out of the quiver, right? You don't have a good opportunity to hit the target that you're shooting for. That's so important as you start to think about your retirement plan as well. How much money do we need to put into our pocketbook? And that allows us to make a lot of other better decisions going forward.
I sure like that thought of 365 Saturdays. That's something I'm really looking forward to. I know a lot of your clients are as well. And it all plays into your rooted retirement process that you sit down and work on with your clients.
Yeah, really the key cornerstone of that is a written income plan to take care of this budget. And where are we going to get that money from? Well, maybe it's from pensions or Social Security, but it could very well be coming from our investments as well. So that's the second piece of the puzzle. What about taxes? It's all about how much money we actually get to keep, right? And that's very important. And as you start to think past that point, we think of it as legacy, not really in terms of leaving money to someone, but how do we want to be remembered? Like, what type of impact do we want to make to our grandkids or to maybe a church or charity that we're passionate about? And we have to be thinking about all pieces there, meaning healthcare costs that we've talked about, and really making sure that we have enough money that we don't run out in those later years. So all very important pieces, and would love to step those watching through our rooted retirement process to explain a little bit more.
All right, thank you so much, Zach. We've got more to come with you. We'll be right back with you. Straight ahead, building a house. What does that have to do with planning for retirement? That's next in this week's Retirement Game Plan. And still to come, Zach answers some of your questions. First, here's how you can contact Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors. Stay with us.
Congratulations, you did it! You worked hard and saved for retirement, but now you have questions. Could my taxes increase? How will I cover my expenses? Will my income last? You need a strategy to help make sure your hard-earned money goes the distance in retirement. That's why we're offering this free guide designed to help you determine if your nest egg can withstand the challenges of a 21st century retirement. Longer lives, increasing healthcare costs, and taxes are just a few of the possible risks to your income. Get the guide today and take the first step to help your money last in retirement.
Social Security. You've been paying into the system your whole career. Now it's time to get the most out of it. But with so many choices, what's the best strategy for you? And how can you maximize your benefits? Find out in this no-obligation Social Security report. Learn how your Social Security benefits can play a role in your overall retirement income plan. A lot of factors go into optimizing your benefits, and if you make an informed decision, you could end up with tens of thousands of extra dollars in retirement. You only get one chance to make the best decision for you. Take the first step and download the Social Security report today.
You're watching Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray of Rooted Wealth Advisors.
If you've ever built a house, you know it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. In today's Retirement Game Plan, Zach explains how it's not much different than building a plan for retirement. Zach?
Thanks, Amy. In this week's retirement game plan, we're going to talk about building a house. No, I'm not a carpenter. I'm not much of a handyman. We're going to be talking about building your fiscal house. And this takes me back to my childhood. As I think back to growing up on a farm, and I still have some of those farm roots today, still involved there, help my brother a little bit as he does planting season, actually still have some cattle that I'm a part of as a part of the farm. I think back to baling hay. I didn't enjoy any piece of that, but I will tell you what I probably hated more than anything is that we get started with the project and then all of a sudden everything kind of comes toppling down. You had to get that first row right. You had to get that foundation right, or else everything was just going to fall right off the hay rack. Some of you might have grown up in a farm situation just like I did, and you might be thinking, you know what, I remember those years, and it was scratchy, and it was itchy, and it was hot. You know what, when it comes to building a house, a lot of the same things are true. You got to get the foundation right, and I'm learning that right now. So my wife and I, we have 4 little ones. We're super blessed. And I will tell you that we didn't think we were going to have 4 little kiddos. Because of that, we need a bigger home. So we are in the process of talking to an architect right now about how to build that home. And because there's just not a whole lot out there that is the size that we need. We want 4 bedrooms for each one of the kids and then obviously our own. And as we think about that, we've got to make the right decisions on where to place the home on the property. And then what do we want well into the future? Do we want something that we could maybe have even grandkids there someday and have a home that everyone can come back to for Christmas? Maybe you have something that's similar as a part of your family tradition. We want that. So we have to make sure that we get the foundation right, because without that, all of the extras, they really don't matter. And in retirement, I think of that foundation, that baseline of the hay bales is making sure that we get that income right. Because in retirement, well, you don't have it without income, right? Those paychecks stop, and then all of a sudden it's, where does it come from? So let's make sure that we get things right. Social Security, there's a lot of different ways that we can go about that. If you're married and watching, there's even hundreds of more different ways that you can go about filing Social Security. What about a pension? Maybe you're fortunate to have a pension. Not everyone does these days, but let's make sure we get that decision right. Let's maximize the most that we possibly can out of those pension dollars. And as we start to think about maybe other investments that we might be pulling from month to month, that's really that foundation. How are we going to pay the bills and, at that point, take care of the essentials, if you will. The walls come next. Boy, that's an overwhelming decision as we start to think about this house project. Where do we want the walls? Do we want an open concept? Do we want to have things divided up a little bit? Do I want to have my own study so maybe I could work from home a little bit? And with 4 young kiddos, getting a little bit of privacy is almost impossible. What I would say about that, though, is that decision comes next as the extras, if you will. I tend to think of it as the trips that you want to do. What are those bucket list trips that you've been waiting on all these years? Maybe you want to spoil the grandkids just a little bit. Even unexpected costs that might come up. Maybe the car goes out on you, or the air conditioner or the furnace needs replaced, and all of a sudden we have to pull from some of those other investments to take care of those needs and wants. The roof is going to come last. And this is, something that we look out into the future. Maybe this is more of the legacy piece of our rooted retirement process. What type of impact do we want to make to our kids or our grandkids? Maybe it's a church or charity that we're passionate about. But what are those things that we want to take care of and really kind of illustrate to others in living out the retirement that we want? What is that legacy that we want to leave behind? And so what I would say is as you look at this entire house picture, getting that foundation right is extremely important. Take care of those non-negotiables. Those bills are going to keep coming every single month. Let's get that right so that all of the extras don't come toppling over like they did on that hay rack years ago in my past. Secondly, let's make sure to take a look at the walls. Maybe this is your more moderate type of investment where we can pull from it for the extras and we can, ultimately do some of those trips and do some of the fun things that we've always wanted to do, spoil the grandkids and go to Disney World. And at the end of the day, let's be sure to look at the roof and how are we going to pass on some of those assets? How are we going to make an impact maybe in our later years, or make sure that we don't have to lean on our kids for that type of care, that we can take care of it ourselves and then ultimately make an impact to maybe another generation. This is the money that is potentially well off into the distance. So as you think about this fiscal house, let's start at the ground level, let's work our way up, and let's build a very sturdy structure that is really custom to all of those wants, those hopes, those desires that you have in retirement. And that is really what that rooted retirement process does oh so well. Back to you, Amy.
Still to come, we'll hear directly from you in our Q&A section. But first, here's a special offer from Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors. Stay with us.
There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement.
You have a club for every scenario, a driver for the long holes, wedges to get you over the hazards, and a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
Welcome back to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray of Rooted Wealth Advisors.
Now it's time to get to some of the questions you have for Zach today. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, I always like to hear the answers to these, so here's our first question for you. Here's one from Jim in Mahomet. My kids are both in their 20s and have been furloughed. They moved back in with us, so expenses are limited. How can I help them financially without jeopardizing our retirement?
You know, I think it's really noble to want to help your kids. As I've had children now, I understand the importance of that. I just would say first things first. Pause for a moment, make sure you're having a conversation with a financial advisor you trust, because many times we see that we want to help. I think that's amazing, but at the same point, we can do some damage to our own retirement dreams that way. So a little bit like if you're on an airplane and it's the put your mask on first, many times I would just tell folks, you know, you can't be a best benefit if you don't maybe take a look at your unique situation first, and then I would say we can proceed accordingly. So a bit of kind of a to and fro answer there. I think it's great to help the kids, but let's just make sure that it's not throwing us totally off track with our own retirement dreams.
That is so tough. I have young adults now, and so it's starting to try to wean them off and let them do their own thing and fly away a little bit. But when they come back, you still want to help. All right, thanks so much. Here's another question, and this is from Gail in Normal. I have my retirement savings in several different sources, but what I don't have is a firm understanding of when I should tap into those different accounts once I retire. What's your advice?
This is where I think a lot of folks go wrong, because for many years it's all about accumulation, right? It's all about let's stack some away, let's stack some away. And maybe it's in a lot of different accounts here for this gal. The only thing I would say with that is that in retirement, it's a different game to be played. It's distribution now. It's about, you know, which one do I pull from first? Do I pull from several buckets, you know, at a similar time, and maybe break that up in terms of taxes for that matter? So once again, there's a bit of a paradigm shift here of it's no longer about accumulation and saving into these different accounts that we might have. It now becomes distribution. And that is a totally different skill set. So I don't see many advisors that do an excellent job of both accumulation and distribution. It's a little bit different idea when it comes to, okay, how do I pull from these now that I'm in retirement? So the key takeaway there is not accumulation. It's more about distribution.
Okay, here we go with another question for you. This one is from Al in Urbana. I'm retiring in the next 6 months. I worked a long time, nearly 40 years. I'm looking forward to retirement, but one of my biggest concerns is taxes. Is there one main area I should focus on? Ooh, that's a tough one for you. Try
Yeah.
to give one area for taxes. It's such a broad subject.
It is a very broad subject, and I think kudos for thinking about taxes, though. I personally think taxes will go up in the future. Even if they stayed status quo and there was no changes whatsoever, we have to be thinking about the fact that I want my money to grow and my investments. I'm sure you feel the same way. So we have to be thinking about this in terms of, okay, even if things don't change there, what if those savings keep growing in my, say, bank account, or maybe that's just a brokerage account? Thinking about it in terms of your traditional 401k or traditional IRA. That money grows, guess what? When we take our hands and put it on that money and pull it back out of that cookie jar, guess what? We're paying our highest ordinary income tax. So let's be thinking about this in terms of what if taxes go up? That's key number one. Even in terms of just sheer growth. Those are very important tax conversations to be thinking about as you think about your investments.
It's a very much think ahead subject in retirement planning, is the tax subject.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Mary Lou in Rantoul says, I work at a big employer in the area and I've been offered an early retirement. It's tough to know whether I should take a pension buyout or take the income from the pension. What are you recommending people like me do?
Boy, there's not a cookie cutter answer there, because sometimes the pension payout is great enough that makes a lot of sense. This is what I would say though. If you have the option for a lump sum pension payout, give that a ton of thought. Make sure that you're looking at that very seriously. I say that because less and less companies are even offering that buyout. And why? Well, we're living longer, right? And if we start to think about that, they no longer have that monkey on their back, right? It's now, you know what, this is your money. Amy, you need to invest it wisely. But I will say it gives us a lot of flexibility. Maybe we can shift money around. Maybe we can do Roth conversions with that type of money, because you would be able to take that lump sum, roll it into an IRA, and then at that point we can maybe take smaller draws. We could take larger draws. We could do conversions and become a little more tax efficient. All of those things give us more flexibility. I personally like a lot of flexibility, but there is no doubt that guaranteed monthly pension paychecks are a great, piece to have too. So it's kind of a toss-up. Make sure you're looking at your unique circumstance. The but is, if you have a lump sum option, please give that a ton of thought. Gives you a lot of flexibility in your retirement plan moving forward.
Okay, great answers. Thank you so much, Zach. If you have a question, you can visit the website. We just might use one of your questions on a future show. And don't hesitate to act on the information you've heard today. It never hurts to call, even if it's for a second opinion. Don't wait. Call now. For Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors, I'm Amy Sharp. Have a great day and an even better retirement.
It's how you remember to grab the perfect ingredient. It's making sure you have all the essentials before you hit the open road. Sometimes it's your friendly reminder there's always more to do. A checklist helps give you confidence you have everything covered so nothing slips through the cracks. When it comes to your retirement, you don't want to leave anything to chance. That's why we created our Checklist Challenge to make sure you have all the essentials for your ideal retirement. Visit the link and take the challenge today. See if you have what it takes to hit the road to retirement with confidence.